Hi, I'm Mark Bunker. This is Aaron Smith-Levin, and this is Dining with the SPs. So where are we today?
It used to be Tony's Pizza, and Tony sold the business, and it's called just Downtown Pizza now.
And I'm going to enjoy a slice right now.
From the outside, you would never guess how big it is in here. When the city puts on big concerts downtown, this is one of the places that always gets packed. People know this place.
I used to come here all the time when it was Tony's.
Yeah, and you've never been refused service here.
No, never have. Hard to believe, but true. This is a place where it's safe to get a piece of pizza, and this is really good. I just had a bite of this.
It is good.
I like this, meat lovers.
As we've said in our previous video, if Mark and I are welcome here, anyone is welcome here. That's code for this place is not owned by a Scientologist.
You, of course, are opting for the healthy chicken Caesar salad.
Yep, I wolfed a lot of pizza yesterday, so I can't do that 2 days in a row.
And
they do have a full bar here, so cheers everybody. I'll drink for the both of us. Cheers.
In the last video, we talked about some of the ways that the city has taken a little bit of a stand against Scientology, at least in as far as selling property to them. You had something kind of amazing happen recently when you were trying to be seated on a board. So, explain that situation.
So I had submitted my name for consideration to be selected to be on the Charter Review Committee for the City of Clearwater. So every 6 years this committee meets and reviews the city charter and proposes changes to it, which is an important process. But the ultimate say for what happens to the city charter is fully in the hands of the city council. So it's not like the committee I was asking to be a part of had actual voting power to make important changes. It had the power of advice. And I was actually asked to submit my name for the Charter Review Committee. And by the way, on my channel, Growing Up in Scientology, because this is going up on Wise Beard Man channel, I did a video about this. And the title of that video was something like, top Florida lobbyist tries to block me from being appointed to a city board or something. And I tell this whole story in more detail.
It's a good video.
And so I didn't make it on the board, and that's fine. But what I found out afterwards was that Mary Repper, who is a top Republican operative in the state of Florida, for real. She's a lobbyist, she's a political consultant, and back in the day, Mike Rinder hired her to do work for the Church of Scientology and represent Scientology's interests legislatively and politically in the state of Florida. And so I got told a story by one of the city council members, and I'm only not naming him because it's not about him.
Yep.
That after the vote occurred, after the city council held their vote, and I didn't make the cut, the vote had actually occurred 3 hours earlier than it was supposed to occur. So after the vote had already occurred and before it was supposed to occur, he got a phone call from Mary Repper saying, Aaron Smith-Levin is up for the Charter Review Committee. And he said, yeah, I know. And she said, we cannot let that happen. And he said, well, today's your lucky day. We already had the vote and he didn't make it. And she said, thank God. And this blew me away. It blew me away because why would anybody give a shit about me being on some committee? One of 15 people, by the way. If 15 people are on this committee,
right,
or somewhere right thereabouts, why would Scientology give a shit? Other than just their normal, petty, do everything you can at every turn to hinder your enemies anywhere you can. And one of the reasons it startled me isn't because it had any real big impact on me. I mean, when you consider it, they actually had no impact. What they wanted happened through no actual fault of their own.
Yeah.
It was that they did it at the risk of looking so stupid and petty in front of people who matter. They make themselves look so bad to accomplish things that have no particular value. And it's just remarkable to see it happen over and over and over again.
Do you think, though, that it actually makes them look bad if the people who are getting the phone call would agree with her?
If the person receiving the phone call from Mary was already someone who was, let's say, sympathetic to the aims of the church, to Scientology, then yeah, it doesn't make him look bad. But this person wasn't.
Yeah.
And most politicians aren't. I mean, politicians tend to be diplomatic and political. Like, whichever local politicians Scientology believes are sympathetic to their cause are nowhere near as sympathetic to their cause as Scientology believes they are. I mean, by evidence of, these are people who are talking to me.
Yeah.
I didn't twist anybody's arm to tell me this story. This story was offered to me. And they just continue to make themselves look stupid in front of people they really should be trying to impress.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so petty, right? So anyway, just to use any political capital on something like that at all, just shows you they don't have it all going on upstairs over there.
Right, and you would have been one of 15 on this panel, as you said.
Right. It wouldn't have mattered at all.
Recently.
It would have been fun, it would have been interesting, it would have been educational for me.
Sure.
To see the process play out. But they didn't accomplish anything.
Yeah.
Anyway, you get it.
Last month, there was a local community group that held a seminar for folks who want to become a candidate in the upcoming elections. And this was a really nice thing for this organization to put together. There was a former city councilman there, and attorney for the city, and several other people who have been involved with local government. And they were giving you the ins and outs of what it takes to run a campaign, things you should know. I found it quite interesting, and it was a very well-attended meeting. And they asked for a show of hands for who is thinking about running for office. And I looked around the room, and there were a whole bunch of different hands. I was at least a dozen or so people. And I was looking around, and I looked to my right, and my hand was in the air. So I do plan to run for the city council.
Now the world knows.
Yes. One of the things that they talked about is the former city council member. He said, do you think those little 3 minutes when you get up to talk at the city commission meetings, do you think that really makes a difference? And of course, nobody raised their hand, because clearly they don't. But, he just came out and said, no, they don't make one bit of difference at all. You silly, simple peasants who think you're coming up with your 3 minutes to make a difference, it doesn't matter.
Who said that? Who said that?
The guy who used to be on the guy.
It was a former council member?
It was a former council member.
I love it, because he's saying what everybody already knows is
Sure.
true. Yeah.
And that's one of the things, over the years that I have occasionally gone up to speak my mind. And one of the entertaining parts of it for me is I can see that they hate hearing from me. The mayor especially is just glaring at me the entire 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. Why are you talking about Scientology again? Why? And I look around the council, nobody wants to hear anything about whatever it is I'm talking about. But it's nice to hear somebody come out and say it.
Yeah.
Hey, you silly fools! Who wants to get up and talk for 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Well, I don't necessarily share that view, but I've decided that one of the things that I had in mind when I moved back here to Clearwater, and people say, why'd you move back to Clearwater, for heaven's sakes? You were out of here. I wanted to see if I could make a difference in Clearwater. And I had been spending so much time with a regular day job, just trying to survive, that the thought of, and I was working evenings, so the thought of being on the city council really wasn't practical. But I knew as soon as I retired, I'd be free to do that, and I retired a few months ago. So I'm planning to run, and I think it's going to be fascinating and intriguing, and I hope that you'll support us along the way, one way or the other, and I'll keep you up to date on everything. Of course, This is more of the exploratory committee phase here, because there's nothing is being filed until the September is when the paperwork gets issued, and you have to go out and collect names and do all of that stuff. But it should be interesting. I'm looking forward to throwing my hat in the ring. But when I was back in the mythical land of Oshkosh, Wisconsin, in my youth, and by youth I mean this would probably have been when I guess it would have been around 30.
Okay.
When 60 Minutes did the first piece on Scientology here in Clearwater. I saw that when it was aired live, and I thought, my God, that's wacky. And then they aired another story on Scientology 2 years later. But there were no other sources back then for you to go to.
Yep.
So you couldn't go on the internet and Google Scientology. There weren't that many books in the library that you'd even think of searching for a book in the library on Scientology. So it caught my attention back in 1980, but it wasn't until the late 90s that I got reconnected to it and started becoming more interested in finding out more, and then became pretty amazed by what I discovered, and then started speaking out. But the story of Clearwater has always been an important part of my journey. So reading about what they did to Gabe Casares, the mayor of Clearwater, when they came into town, all the covert actions they did against Clearwater, those were things that I just found utterly appalling. And when I came here to Clearwater with the Lisa McPherson Trust back in 2000, I was a big fan of the police department. I don't know if I mentioned this part when we talked about the police last time.
Yeah.
I came here, and one of the first things that we did with the LMT is we went to a Martin Luther King Jr. breakfast meeting. And we joined the NAACP, and we went to this breakfast. And Chief of Police Sid Klein was there with a lot of the people from the department.
Okay.
And this is the first chance I had to meet Chief Klein. So I went up to his table, and I extended my hand and said, "It is such a pleasure to meet you. I want you to know that I'm a big fan of the Clearwater Police. I know what you've gone through over the years with Scientology, and I just wanted to say hi and say thank you." And he wouldn't shake my hand.
Really?
He glared at me and he just said, "If you get in my way, I'll arrest you."
Really?
And I just went, huh?
He knew who you were at this point?
Yeah, because I was there with Bob and Stacy, and so there was awareness that I was part of this group that was there to be a watchdog over Scientology.
And they just saw you guys as kind of troublemakers.
Troublemakers, yes. And that really floored me, and I went, oh boy, I have to recalibrate, because this is not exactly what I thought I was entering into.
Right.
And indeed, Stacy Brooks and Bob Minton sat down with then city manager Mike Roberto to talk about us being here in town. And the city wasn't at all happy about it. And Roberto said, "Look, we've worked hard for several years now to get Scientology off the front pages of the paper.
Oh.
And you guys are here, and now they're back on the front pages. We don't want that. We're trying to redevelop downtown, and you're just going to be a nuisance."
Wow.
He also said, listen, he came up from Miami. And he said, in Miami, I had to deal with a mob. It's no different here.
Wow.
It's something you have to put up with.
Yeah.
So it was really, really kind of startling.
Wow. He compared Scientology to the mob.
He did.
I love it.
I mean, it's not that much of a stretch.
It's not a stretch at all. In fact, I was in a conversation just 2 days ago. I was actually having a conversation that involved a 30-year veteran of the FBI. And I asked him, have you ever seen an organization try to cover its own tracks and move around witnesses and hide evidence the way Scientology does, other than the mafia? And he said, nope, only the mafia.
Yep. So, I plan to start collecting some names in just a few months and see if I can get on that ballot. And see
Fantastic.
If I can get a seat on that council.
Well, I'll tell you what, in the video that I did talking about Mary Repper, I said, Mary, if you thought that me being on Clearwater's Charter Review Committee was something you have to worry about, and if you were worried about what your Scientology overlords were going to say to you if you failed to stop me from being appointed to this committee, I would not want to be in your shoes come the 2020 elections. And I knew saying that was going to make people think that I was running for city council or for mayor. And I'm not running for city council or for mayor. It would be fun to win, but I don't want the job. But I and Mike Render and Leah Remini are going to do everything in our power to get Mark Bunker elected to city council. And I can tell you, I've been speaking with a handful of other people who will be running. And I said, full disclosure, guys, just don't run for whatever seat Mark Bunker's running for because he's getting elected. And I say to these guys, and I'm speaking in generalities because I don't want any one person to think I'm talking about them specifically. Because there are people who really know what's going on here and want a new wave of change to come. They want to see people on the council who are educated and knowledgeable about Scientology's tactics and motivations and aren't susceptible to the bullshit and the smoke and the mirrors. It's nonsense, right? And it's the time has come for people to be on the council who actually know what's going on.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've pointed out to the council in various speeches that I've given in my pointless 3-minute arguments, I've always said, you should have Mike Render on your speed dial. You need somebody who knows what is actually happening inside Scientology to stand up to them.
Yep.
So if I get elected, finally there will be somebody on the council with Mike on the speed dial.
Absolutely. And I have another ulterior motive for wanting to get someone like you on the council. The people of Clearwater, and I guess in your experience, as you just said, the officials in Clearwater, are really tired of the impression that the media creates, right? The headlines, that Scientology owns this town, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, in a certain regard, well, there is truth to the fact that Scientology is the biggest landowner in downtown Clearwater.
Yeah.
So if you want to say, well, they literally own the town, then fine, I get it. But but that's actually not true, because downtown is a very small portion of all of Clearwater, right? And despite their property holdings, and despite, Scientology pays tax on 20% of its property. And that alone makes them the largest taxpayer in downtown Clearwater, right?
Right.
So even though they're a tax-exempt organization,
Yeah.
they own so much property that they still end up being the largest property owner in downtown Clearwater. And that's where you get this this phrase that gets thrown around of Scientology owns downtown Clearwater.
Yep.
So where am I going with this? Regardless of how much they own and regardless of how much taxes they pay, their influence is minuscule. And I mean influence where it matters. And the fact that Scientology has never been able to get any of its members elected to any office in this town or in this county or in this state apparently isn't enough for people to get that message that Scientology's influence is nowhere near what they would like everybody to believe that it is.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about this about a year ago, and I said, look, the fact that they haven't been able to get one of their own members elected isn't enough for people to get the message. So what would it take? We have to show they can't even stop anybody else from getting elected. Because the way I was trying to figure out, why do politicians act so afraid? Well, it could only be two things. They're afraid that Scientology could prevent them from being reelected,
Right.
or they're afraid that Scientology is going to find out their dirty laundry and air it to the world. I mean, it's both of those things, right? And I'm like, okay, well look, if someone's got skeletons in their closet, they're always going to be afraid.
Yeah.
But, barring that, they need to get the message that Scientology doesn't have influence. It has pretend influence.
Right.
And so I'm being kind of long-winded about this, but I was like, look, if we can get somebody who's at the top of Scientology's enemies list here locally, which you, sir, are, that's going to send a clear message to everybody. Stop being afraid of these clowns.
Yeah.
And by clowns, I don't mean all Scientologists. the Church of Scientology. They're a bunch of clowns, and they throw their weight around. They try to, it's all bark, no bite. If you ask me, that is how I feel about it. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
Well, conversely, if I'm found dead in a ditch sometime before the election in March 2020, yeah, no one ever will run against them again. But I plan to stay alive for it.
Yeah. So this is going to be a lot of fun. I truly believe. Now, we have the same problem politically that probably exists all over the country, which is very low interest, very low engagement on the part of the community. Mm-hmm. I think less than 20% of the people vote. I think that's correct. I think I'm being generous.
Especially the elections for office for the city council and for the mayor. That's going to happen during the primary election. So even fewer people vote during the primaries.
Right.
By the time the actual election day comes, where you would choose the president,
yeah, right,
this race will be over.
That's right.
So we got to get people out for the primary.
That's right. Now, but here's where this is going to get really interesting, and this is why I think this is exciting. When it comes to just straight up political issues, mm-hmm. I think it's very easy for people to tune out. It doesn't affect their day-to-day lives. At least they don't think that it does, and it's easy not to show up. But this is Clearwater. There's one issue everybody cares about: Scientology. And I want the citizens of Clearwater to know which candidates running for city council are just straight up not afraid of the Church of Scientology and are not going to hesitate or back down to call them out on their bad behavior. We're not talking about, persecuting them for beliefs. We're talking about calling them out on their bad behavior, and their bad behavior is really what the city of Clearwater needs to care about, right? And the world's going to know that Mark Bunker's their guy, and I think we're going to see people showing out to the polls to vote in numbers that you would not see otherwise if we didn't have a candidate that we could say that about. I mean, that's what I'm hoping for.
Well, yeah, I would agree with that. And I'm not going to be able to use eminent domain to take Scientology's properties away. I'm not going to be able to do all of that, but we can at least focus on how they behave, and I'd like to take a look at their tax-exempt status and see if there's anything we can do about that.
Absolutely.
Oh, you mentioned Leah before, and Mike. One of the things that sped up my retirement is when we were taping the two-parter about Scientology. They had to have planned this ahead of time because they did this in unison. But during the interview section, they said if only there was somebody locally who could run for office, Mark. And I just broke into laughter and went, yeah, you're right. Well, that's why I'm here. So I better get to it. This election is around the bend. So
did they say that on camera?
They said it on camera.
It didn't make the cut, did it?
No, it didn't make the cut. No. There was about 3 hours worth of stuff that didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
But it amused the hell out of me.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun, and I'm going to keep you up to date all along the way. I'll hopefully have cameras with me, following me around, knocking on doors, all that kind of stuff.
It's going to
be
awesome.
Signatures for everything, and so it'll be an interesting journey.
Yeah. So I think what I would like to say to the people of Clearwater, and by the way, a lot of local people are going to see this video, right? If you are tired of what Scientology has done to the downtown area, if you've seen the show and you thought, what can I do? Like, what can any of us do? Well, there's two things. One, come downtown, join us at restaurants like the one we're eating at now, Downtown Pizza. We're going to keep doing these videos. And two, vote for Mark Bunker.
You'll be glad you did. All right, well, let's just close off now and enjoy our meals.
All right.
And we'll see you next time.
Cheers, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.